Hello, welcome to SquishiVision. I'm about to give my thoughts on Ms. Marvel time, and again, this is my reactions having just watched it. Not scrubbed through, picked out any details. This is my immediate reaction having just watched it. Don't we need to give a rating, I guess, this week on this portrayal of Islam because there wasn't really any portrayal of Islam. There was I guess, a few things which I guess were a bit only a few like minor details. So I guess it's then but there wasn't really any depiction of anything Islamic other than culturally and its involvement in the partition. So we can skip over that usual recurring segment, I guess I do in these things. But yeah, so this episode had some weird pacing issues, but very it's weird. I don't actually know that much about the partition. I think I commented about how in like the second episode there's a quote from a character about how every Pakistani family has a partition story. I'm like, well, I don't have one. Am I meant to? Does Marvel know something that I don't? And apparently, because I'm mum, we do. Don't know why I've never been told it. It's a bit annoying actually that I don't have that knowledge of my own. I don't. I don't have that strong connection with my Pakistani heritage, at least not culturally. But doesn't mean I'm not necessarily interested in our kind of history historically. I guess the more I kind of engage with race theory, um, it perhaps becomes a bit more important. I understand my own context for my own race because otherwise, how can I come up with my own race and really that's the only race I should be authority to comment on. Um, so that's something I need to do. So it helped me to really comment on the portrayal of the partition, and really I kind of want to as a Pakistani because I don't actually know that much. And I don't know how to position myself in that story, but it still hits me. It hit me the same way about the uh Demons of Punjab story from Doctor Who did a few years ago when that was about a petition and that kind of hit me and I was always I guess I'm still if nothing else I can still feel that degree of just anger and sorrow and needless bloodshed and conflict and bigotry and intolerance and how that directly is fueled and perpetuated by colonization and capitalism. So any show which treats the British like they're villains gets a thumbs up in my mind. But yeah, I guess we don't need to know much about the petition to have an emotional investment in this story where Aisha and Hassan, I think it's Hassan. We see Aisha after I think a flashback a couple episodes ago, not last episode. She's on the road and she meets Hassan. We skip over their kind of they get the obligatory bonding scene and then we miss filling the gaps and they're married and she's got his child, their child. Jesus, that was a really poor way to phrase that. Um, they're having a child and they have Sana who is Kamala's grandmother. Um, and they bond. We see Hassan's kind of anger about how he's being treated because he's a Muslim. Um, eventually, gosh, I forget what her name is now. What's the villain in this show called? I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I can't remember what the name of the villain in this show is called. Um, trying to get the Wikipedia article up, and it's just bouncing towards the last thing I searched, which was this episode. Uh, Come on, cast. Najma. Um, Najma catches up to them and um it's like yeah I guess by this point Aisha's realized that if they go home they're going to destroy the planet and obviously she's acclimatized to it and doesn't want to destroy innocent people just so she can get home and obviously she's got her child so using the petition as I guess a reason they flee and Najma catches up on them and kills Aisha because Aisha refuses to give her a bracelet and we get a nice scene that has been alluded to about her about Sana using stars to find her way to her father. And the whole scene was quite emotional. I think it was more emotional because of the whole. I can imagine the trauma and the panic and the anxiety and the fear and just the claustrophobia of being in that situation of trying to evacuate. And then the whole parent fear of losing a child is going to be added onto that. So I really feel for Hassan in that scene. Obviously, when Aisha gets killed and he never knows, and there's that really good moment where he's getting on a train and he's like, he knows that he's never going to see Aisha again, but he's also knows that he's never going to know what happened to her, and like she doesn't even get that closure. Like that's quite heartbreaking. And then the whole context of the partition, lots of scared people packed on trains. It's quite a horrifying scene. So I can definitely not necessarily relate to it. I've never fortunately been in a situation, but I can empathize with that general degree of anxiety. And I guess for the horrors of the modern world, at least we're not. At least we have things like technology that can provide some degree of safety, and you don't even have that there. You've just got yourself. There's a definitely weird pacing though. Like Mala comes in about 2/3 of the way through, to much we left her. Very much goes through the motions of playing her role of finding Sana and helping her home without any little kind of flavoring or space or breathing around it. It's very economic. I mean, not necessarily in a bad way. You just kind of expect it to happen. It happens. Expectations. Self delivery. Nothing. It's basic storytelling and little else. And then she gets pulled back to her own time. The fracture in realities has caused a veil to open to their time, and one of them tries to go through and gets petrified, and it's kind of a cool effect where they turn this purple stone and then disintegrate, and like first their flesh, which has become the stone, disintegrates, and leaves just the skeleton behind, which then kind of disintegrates. But they've animated it to look as realistic as it can be, so it's not like a comedic kind of skeleton fall down. The skeleton actually crumbled, so I think that's kind of cool. I think this made Namja the only remaining clandestine. And then this whole thing is like getting loose, so Kamala has to close it, and she's like, help me close it, and Namja's like, I think I can get through. I can get home. It's not clear if this is. It's very clear happening because the insinuation forwards to get home you have to create a massive portal, which would be like a world devastating explosion. That isn't what happened here, and it wasn't done deliberately. So I'm not sure if this is what they were trying to do, or if it's just like an accidental alternative way to get home that would happen by accident. Clearly wasn't stable. So I wasn't sure why she was like so convinced this was her way through. But I guess I guess not. I guess if she's been wanting it, she's gonna try and clasp at anything, and she doesn't want to live in that world anymore. But like it starts to kind of expand, and Kamal's trying to close it, and I'm just like, whatever, I don't care, I want to go home. And then I'm just like, well, what about Cameron? And she's like, well, I abandoned Cameron. And she's like, well, you can go back to Cameron. And she's like, and then she's like, yes, I know how to close a portal. I'll do it by killing myself, which kind of, again, there was no, kind of no sequitur. Like, is the situation that this portal would, if it kept growing, it would encompass the world and therefore kill Cameron. Therefore, she sacrificed herself to save Cameron. But also, it's not clear how she closes the portal. Like, she does the exact same thing the other person does, but somehow that causes the portal to close. It's not really clear what happens. This is where the pacing kind of squishes. And then she somehow passes some power to Cameron. I'm like, has she possessed Cameron? Or, I mean, I guess that's going to be answered in the next episode, but it's very unclear. And then we kind of just wrap up. Actually, we probably wrap up pretty much everything in terms of Kamala's emotional arc. I mean, this would work as a series finale, albeit a rushed and therefore unsatisfactory one. In that all of her kind of her conflict with her mother seems resolved. Her mother kind of understands everything. It's like, well, her mother's finished her arc of I've been holding you too tightly. Kamala's arc is about not really knowing her place and who she is, and I don't know if that's necessarily been resolved. So perhaps again, but it feels like everything's been resolved. Some of the story's been resolved. The main villain apparently is gone. Apparently, or at least if this was the last episode, we would be led to believe that this is an end to their arc in this part. Like they've had an arc. It feels like the end of the series. We've got one more episode, but like it was very rushed, and then like even like I said, we jump back to Cameron, who's hiding with Bruno, and has powers now, and then the Department of Damage Control find them, and then if we find them, it like launches a missile into the shop, but like misses, so like we know it hasn't hurt them. Like they're like, oh, the shop explodes, they survive. No, we know it missed them. We know they're fine. Literally, there's a line, and then as soon as that line gets finished, it's cut off. It's very much like the end of Desolation of Smog, where Bubbles like, my God, what have we done? Half a beat, blackout, credits, and you're like, wait, that's the end. Okay, I guess the movie's over. It's like it feels like. I mean, we know for a fact that the Hobbit was meant to be a duology, it turned into a trilogy, and obviously that had to be re-edited to have that happen. So it almost felt like they didn't know how to edit a second movie, so they just ended it where the runtime would have ended. And literally, then you open up the third film, and it opens up pretty much exactly where we left off. You could probably put the films back to back and not have to re-edit it much, or tell that it was put together. This show this essentially ended. I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's over. It's a very weird pacing. So yeah, that ending was very confusing, like narratively. Like I guess I know what happened, I just don't feel it as happening. So that's kind of bizarre. Um, so emotionally, the episode worked. I guess I could, I guess it all technically worked. It was very bizarre. The way they constructed the episode was very, very bizarre. So those are my thoughts. Next week is the finale. And then, gosh, what do we have after that? I don't know. But I'm going to go watch Thor: Love and Thunder on Saturday. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that, I'm probably going to do what I did with Lightyear and try and stream it outside the cinema before I go home. So we'll see how well I'll do that. It's going to be an evening viewing rather than mid-afternoon viewing, so we don't know what the lighting's going to be like. But yeah, see you guys for that, and finger guns.